The scene begins on a day when monsters suddenly appeared in the human world, wreaking havoc and causing widespread destruction. A broadcast provided live updates via helicopter, when suddenly, a colossal, rock-like structure emerged from the ground. This towering edifice was known as the Tutorial Tower. The tower selected a few individuals and drew them inside. Only 20% of those chosen, based on their age and physical condition, would survive the trials within and be rewarded with special abilities, becoming hunters, the last hope for humanity. The scene then shifts to 12 years later, after the Tutorial Tower had been cleared for the first time. A young hunter emerged from the tower, greeted as a hero by the public and supported by nations worldwide. Hunters formed associations and guilds to collaborate and assist each other in their operations. The scene transitions to a broadcast where an anchor named Lee introduces some guests for the program. They gather and share information related to the hunters, providing updates and insights to the audience. She welcomed the three top guild leaders of South Korea: Han, Seoi Lee, and Kim. The show was extremely popular and garnered widespread attention. Lee mentioned rumors about an advanced player who had been living in the Tutorial Tower, and she asked if the guild leaders were familiar with this player. Han responded that it seemed the player was still alive and well. Seoi Lee explained that everyone knew about him since they had all been together when they were first taken to the Tutorial Tower as the first generation of hunters. Lee was astonished to hear that a player had been in the tower for 12 years. Kim revealed that the advanced player had been cursed, which had sent him back to the first floor after clearing the dungeon. Lee then understood the implications. She noted that the tower was known as a place where hunters trained to clear dungeons and gain special abilities. If someone had been doing this for 12 years, they would be exceptionally powerful. Han shared an account of a hunter who had witnessed the advanced player complete a total of 100 floors in a single day, highlighting the player's extraordinary strength compared to others. The scene shifts to the 100th floor of the tower, where some hunters were fleeing in terror from a monster. Yet one man remained standing resolute. Before him loomed Balgor, the final monster. People had been talking about the advanced player and speculated that if he were an S-rank hunter, he could easily obliterate a mountain. Others shared their own experiences. One claimed to have seen the advanced player and insisted he wasn't entirely human. Another reported that with a single kick, Lin could destroy the 10th floor of the tower. As the advanced player faced Balgor, he delivered a powerful kick, defeating the monster effortlessly. He then realized that he was running out of new challenges to conquer. The boy reflected on how he had entered the Tutorial Tower 12 years ago when it first appeared. Towers in different continents shared the same content, and many countries had tried to educate their people about them. Despite these efforts, only a small fraction of hunters managed to clear the Tutorial Tower. Nearly 70 out of every 95 individuals did not survive. The boy paused his recollections and noted that this was his 1,349th clear. As he stepped through the portal, he found himself on the first floor and announced that the 1,350th round had begun, though he yearned to go home. He checked his profile and saw that nothing had changed. He remembered coming to the tower 12 years earlier with a group, defeating the boss on the 100th floor, and receiving praise for his efforts. However, as they exited the portal, he found himself alone on the first floor. He soon realized that he had been cursed by the tower, preventing him from leaving. Initially bewildered, he began to clear the dungeon repeatedly, training rigorously and assisting beginners. Despite his efforts, he could not endure hearing about the outside world. With no other choice, he dedicated himself to clearing the tower over and over again. 12 years passed in this endless cycle. He noticed that the loop was finally broken and felt a surge of excitement, anticipating that after clearing the next tower, he might finally be able to return home. The scene shifts to a broadcast featuring the three guild leaders and Lee. She asks if anyone might be able to break the current record for clearing the tower, which stands at 10 months. Seoi Lee replies that it would be difficult. Kim adds that it depends on the individual's ability, while An points out that the main challenges arise after the 51st floor. The scene transitions to Lin, who is clearing the dungeons with remarkable speed. He soon reaches the boss on the 100th floor and defeats it effortlessly. Outside the tower, there is a vast open area with only an observation tower. The portal from the tower opens, and a man instructs his team to be ready with the list of survivors. When only one boy emerges, the man approaches him to offer congratulations. However, he notices that the boy, Hai, is not paying attention. Hai, overjoyed to be outside, finally introduces himself. The man searches through his records and finds Hai's name at the top of the list. Realizing that Hai is the advanced player, he confirms the boy's identity. It is officially verified that Hai is indeed the legendary advanced player. After 1 week, a large crowd gathered at a location where a reporter announced that the 18th generation hunters would undergo their first grade assessment. This assessment was extra special as it followed a world record time for completion, which had been shattered by 2 weeks. The report also mentioned that the advanced player would be participating in the assessment. In the tutorial VIP waiting room, Han, Seoi Lee, and Kim were waiting and discussing whether Hai would actually appear. Kim confirmed that Hai was the only advanced player they knew of. They were all aware that the physical appearance of hunters did not change while inside the tower. Han was particularly excited to see Hai. The host announced that the grade assessment would begin in 5 minutes and instructed the survivors to prepare for their exams. Except for Lin, everyone got ready, as Lin was preoccupied with eating food, which he soon finished. Lin then inquired about the equipment they were supposed to wear. Finally, the gate opened, revealing the Seoul Tutorial Center's grade assessment labyrinth. David welcomed everyone, introduced himself, and announced that it was time to start the grade assessment exam. David explained the details of the assessment but noted that it wasn't a particularly challenging entrance exam. The authorities wanted the participants to gain experience and showcase their talents. He pressed a button, and a complex, man-made labyrinth emerged, filled with various obstacles for the hunters. David instructed them to use their skills as the exam began. All the beginners rushed into the labyrinth. David observed that they were disciplined and considered their initial approach crucial. Hai approached David and asked if it mattered how he reached the exit. David was taken aback, wondering if Hai was a trainee, noting the absence of his equipment and his lack of seriousness about the exam. David agreed but questioned if Hai was joking. Hai dismissed the formalities and suggested that others handle the speeches. Lin then made a bet of 1,000,000 won, claiming he could reach the exit in 20 seconds, and asked if David was intimidated. David responded with a challenge of 10,000,000 won. Lin accepted and charged towards a wall. He thought about how the daily payout for hunters was 10,000,000 won, making this amount seem enormous. Lin punched the wall with force, determined to prove his point. Everyone watched intently as Hai performed, and Han was also uncertain about Hai's actions. Lin charged at the wall and punched it with tremendous force, breaking through. He emerged at the exit and announced that it was a new route he had created. The spectators were stunned by Lin's display and wondered what had just happened. Han remarked on Hai's recklessness, while Lin was amazed at how easily he earned 1,000,000 won. He then speculated whether the arena would require him to pay for the damage he caused. The next day, during a live broadcast on Hunter magazine, a man inquired whether the magazine had received a list of hunters undergoing the grade assessment and if they were excited about the sales figures for the month. The interviewer asked if the buzz was due to the advanced player. The boy revealed that the advanced player's identity was concealed and asked if there were any other notable participants. The interviewer confirmed that Kang was a strong backup choice. The scene shifts to Kang, who is about to confront the boss on the 100th floor. He reminisces about Hai, who had previously been infuriatingly effective, effortlessly defeating monsters and stealing Kang's spotlight. Returning to the present day, Kang is administering the assessment test. The exam is temporarily halted when the wall is broken, causing the survivors to wait in the rest area for further instructions. In the press room at the grade assessment site, people are astonished by the situation and spot Hai in slippers, noting that he is emerging as a rising star. In the waiting room, Hai was relaxing while others discussed the recent explosion, with rumors circulating that the advanced player was responsible. Kang believed he still had a chance to excel. An announcement was made, stating that the exam would restart in 15 minutes and instructing everyone to prepare. Kang thought that regardless of whether Hai was truly the advanced player, he lacked the experience and skill that Kang possessed. Kang proceeded to the monster wave assessment, where he efficiently defeated the monsters within the allotted time, earning praise and achieving the highest score. Soon after, Hai was called for the monster wave assessment. Despite feeling exhausted, he prepared for the test. Observers were curious if he was indeed the advanced player. Han wondered if they would see how Hai's fighting style had evolved. Hai had 120 seconds to complete the test. As the countdown ended, monsters began to appear and the test commenced. Hai swiftly kicked a monster, showcasing his formidable power. The authorities were astounded by his speed, as he moved so quickly that even the camera struggled to keep up. Han observed that Hai was not using magic. Instead, he relied on his physical strength to punch and defeat the monsters. When the 120 seconds concluded, it was revealed that Hai had killed a total of 248 monsters. The live stream was flooded with appreciative comments praising Hai's performance. Meanwhile, Kang, infuriated by Hai's superior results despite his own intense training, smashed his phone and threw it against the wall in frustration. After the test, Alice presented Hai with a list of guilds eager to meet him. She congratulated him on his return after 12 years and informed him that many things had changed in the meantime. With the increased risks, the rewards would be greater. The guilds were now actively recruiting skilled hunters to form teams, tackle challenges, and secure substantial rewards. As Hai reviewed the list, he suddenly felt hungry. Alice, noticing his confusion, asked why he seemed unsettled. Hai responded that she, being the chief of the information division, should be aware of the details. Alice revealed that she had personal reasons for being there and wanted to share something with the advanced player. She presented a file, which contained a contract from the Red Guild outlining the members' rights and duties. She instructed Hai to focus on the section regarding the signing bonus. Hai was astonished when he saw the amount listed. Alice asked him how he felt about holding a contract worth 10 billion won. Hai was shocked by the sum, realizing the gravity of the offer and its implications. Hai asked Alice when the value of their currency had dropped so significantly, wondering if they had experienced hyperinflation similar to Zimbabwe. Alice explained that while the currency's value had fallen due to monsters, there was no financial crisis. Instead, the price of land had skyrocketed. She showed him the figures, revealing that the price had risen from 300 million to 1.3 billion. Despite the increase, Alice assured him that the 10 billion won signing bonus was secure. She also mentioned that the Ares Guild was willing to offer twice the current signing bonus if he renewed his contract with them at the end of the term. Additionally, he would be able to share the spoils he acquired in the labyrinths with the guild, with a distribution ratio favoring him. Hai inquired if handling guild contracts was part of an information officer's job. Alice explained that she had personal reasons for being involved, and the Ares Guild had insisted that she present the offer to him. Hai found it troubling and suspected it might be illegal. He stated firmly that he had no intention of signing with any guild. Alice seemed surprised, thinking he was joking, but Hai reiterated his seriousness. He preferred not to join a guild. Afterward, he retired to a room, contemplating the situation. He suspected that the enormous offers were driven by ulterior motives, and was wary of the intentions behind such lucrative proposals. Hai decided to rest and reflected on his departure from the tower. Alice asked him once more if he was truly uninterested in joining a guild. He affirmed his disinterest, mentioning that he had heard about hunters who worked alone. Alice explained that it was nearly impossible for inexperienced hunters to navigate the labyrinth alone. She advised him to reach out if he ever changed his mind, reminding him that she had already given him her contact card. Hai resolved to learn more about mercenary hunters and reviewed a list of guilds and their leaders, noticing that some of his friends' names were included. 5 days later, Hai was at a Japanese restaurant with his friends, marveling at how much they had changed. Han repeatedly asked how many times Hai would ask about their past. Hai reminisced about their time together 12 years ago, recalling a particular incident where Kim had hidden behind him. As they enjoyed their meal, Hai expressed his joy at reconnecting with them and wondered how he had survived in the tower without such delicious food. They reminisced about their past adventures, including their battle with a merman on the 70th floor. Han shared that he had been skeptical about the urban legends claiming Hai had escaped the tower. Hai was curious about these legends. Lee revealed that Hai had become a celebrity, and Kim added that they had seen Hai's exploits on TV. They mentioned infamous moments, such as Hai defeating a boss with a bizarre dance, and inquired about what Hai had been up to during his time in the tower. Hai explains that he only wanted to see if he could defeat the boss through dancing and find a way to escape from the tower. Han, having observed Hai's performance in the assessment test, realizes just how strong Hai truly is, confirming the stories he had heard. Lin advises him to try and get stuck in the tower and assures him that they will explore every possible option. He reflects on whether his student will be all right and reveals that he once helped a hunter whose generation he did not know. At that time, he was fixated on the idea of martial arts, so he trained the boy in that discipline. As Han wonders about the martial art, Hai explains that he believed he might escape the tower using it. Hai then recounts how he trained the boy and asks his friends about the changes in the outside world over the past 12 years. After their conversation, Hai returns to his room to rest and notices he has received no new messages. He is surprised to see that his age is now displayed as 24 instead of 36. Determined to improve his situation, he decides to earn money and live a decent life. Noting that the endless loop option has been removed, he discovers that he now needs to defeat 3 dungeon bosses to meet the minimum requirements. A guard knocked on the door and informed Hai that representatives from the Ares Guild had arrived to discuss a contract. Hai replied that he wasn't interested. The guard hesitated, suggesting that Hai come out to speak with them directly. Lin sensed that the representatives wouldn't stop coming until Hai agreed. The guard mentioned that they were waiting in the lounge on the first floor. When Lin arrived and directly refused the contract, he found that the representative was Kang, the manager of the Ares Guild. Kang questioned whether Hai could make progress as a true hunter and attempted to intimidate him. Hai responded rudely, which only fueled Kang's anger. A second man intervened, calming Kang and advising Hai not to be foolish, suggesting that Hai didn't fully understand the Ares Guild. Hai remarked that the Ares Guild was a corrupt organization. He recalled a conversation with his friends where he learned about dungeon admission tickets. Kim had revealed that the Ares Guild monopolized 66% of all the country's dungeons. Lee added that A-rank dungeons were ideal for farming, while D-rank dungeons were meant for beginners. She had heard that Ares Guild was financially powerful, with substantial resources. They either had to purchase the expensive admission tickets or become Ares members, who were forced into choosing between these two options. As Hai finished recounting this, Kang, frustrated, slammed his hand on the table, breaking it. The other man warned Hai not to think he could simply run away from them, reminding him that they had their own operatives. He advised Hai to be cautious regarding the offer. Kang told Hai that he didn't seem to fully grasp the situation, questioning how he thought he could stand against an A-rank hunter like him. Hai calmly took off his slipper and invited Kang to come at him. Enraged, Kang attempted to attack, but Hai struck him in the face with the slipper, sending him crashing into the wall. Kang was visibly shocked. Kang recalled watching Hai fight during the monster wave and was puzzled by Hai's reaction to the lady Kang had sent. He wondered how things had gone so wrong, especially since Hai wasn't even using magic yet was still incredibly strong. Hai advanced towards Kang, expressing his disdain for those who threatened him. Kang appeared terrified as Hai struck him as well. That night, Kim visited Hai and told him that he had gone too far. Kim warned that the Ares Guild was relentless, known for holding grudges and sending threats to prevent others from joining rival guilds. They might even kill him in the labyrinths without leaving any trace. Hai acknowledged the brutality of the situation. Kim agreed, adding that Hai's actions had been equally harsh and offered him a chance to join his guild. Hai stated that he wasn't considering joining any guild at the moment and intended to put that decision on hold. Kim asked what trouble Hai was planning to cause this time. Hai revealed that he had some personal matters to attend to and inquired if Kim had heard of Aderon's laboratory. He recalled being trapped in the tower for 12 years and expressed his intention to find and punish the person responsible for his ordeal, believing there must be a significant reason behind it. Kim questioned why Hai was asking about the laboratory all of a sudden. Hai realized that Kim must know something about it. Kim explained that Aderon's laboratory was located in either a C or C- rank dungeon, making it a suitable place for beginners to strengthen their skills. Hai mentioned that he planned to conduct some business there. Kim expressed uncertainty about whether that was allowed, noting that Ares Guild held exclusive rights to the dungeons, including Aderon's laboratory. Shocked, Hai asked if there were any government regulations to prevent such monopolies. Kim revealed that no government officials were overseeing the hunters, and hunters had no voting power. He noted that only a few individuals managed to become hunters. Hai compared the situation to murder. Kim explained that, due to the dangers of dungeons, deaths were often marked as accidental by the police. On the surface, Ares Guild managed things by imposing heavy taxes to ensure no outsiders interfered. Hai decided to sneak in, but Kim warned him that there were always guards stationed there. Lin chose to approach from the front. Kim cautioned that Hai would become an enemy of Ares if he proceeded as planned, and detailed how Ares Guild was expanding its influence. The scene shifts to Ares Guild, where a man inquires about the latest updates. He is informed that expansion into China will take 5 months, Russia 8 months, and Japan 7 months. Hugh remarks that this isn't bad at all, emphasizing the importance of staying one step ahead of the competition. He likens it to farming monster skills. It's not about being faster than the dungeon boss, but being faster than the person next to you. He instructs them to keep a close watch. The man then presents the analysis of Kim's projected stat level as requested by Hugh. Hugh reviews the report and asks if the data is accurate. Bion confirms it is. Hugh then inquires if they have recruited the boy. Bion replies that Kang approached him, but the boy declined. Hugh speculates that recruiting him could be profitable but also risky, as the boy might be dissatisfied and come after his position. He describes the situation as a poison apple, appearing appealing but fraught with potential problems. After this discussion, Bion leaves, and a boy arrives with a problem concerning Aderon's laboratory. The scene shifts to Cheonbo Mountain in Uijiangbu, where a girl is being denied entry until she purchases a dungeon admission ticket. She protests, stating there are no other places to hunt. The man suggested that the girl could enter the labyrinth for free, where she would encounter low-rank monsters. A second man warned her that she might get killed there. The first man pointed out that she neither had the skills nor the money, yet she still wanted to take the easy route. Despite this, she continued to plead with them. The first man said he wouldn't break the rules, but if he took a closer look at her situation, he might reconsider. He asked for her contact information, promising that he might let her in afterward. At this moment, Hai arrived dressed casually, prompting the boy to tell him to leave, saying it wasn't a place for casual visits. Hai explained that he had business inside the dungeon. The man replied that it wasn't a playground, but a real dungeon filled with monsters. Hai retorted, saying that was exactly why he came, as he had some business to attend to in the dungeon. He then questioned the man's intelligence. The man mocked Hai's appearance and questioned his identity. In response, Hai removed his slipper and told him not to underestimate him. Angered, the man crossed the line, and Hai, in turn, hit him so hard with the slipper that he fell. Hai then demanded that the man's companion give him his shoes, warning him that he would end up in the same situation if he refused. Terrified, the man complied. Hai discovered that the shoes seemed heavy, as if made of iron, yet they were surprisingly weightless. The man, distressed, explained that the shoes were worth 5 million. Hai gave his spare shoes to the boy and headed inside. The girl also left the scene. The scene then shifts to Kim and Lee. Lee is furious upon learning that Kim let Hai go. She questions how Kim could have allowed this and how he plans to handle the situation. Kim asks if Lee was Hai's boyfriend. Lee instructs Kim to focus on the issue at hand and expresses frustration that Kim should know how the Aries Guild operates. Kim explains that he had already warned Hai, but Hai had not heeded the warning. Kim then asks if Lee believes that anyone could stop Hai. Lee does not respond directly, but questions if this implies that Hai is now an enemy of the Aries Guild. Kim agrees, at least from Hai's perspective. He believes that Hai wouldn't have caused problems if he were alone, but if anyone crosses him, Hai will reveal his true self. Kim also shares with Lee what he discussed with Hai, leaving her surprised by the revelation. The scene shifts to the dungeon where Hai has entered. The main boss of the dungeon, preoccupied with thoughts of his subjects, finds that they are missing. Meanwhile, a group of 3 hunters is hiding, planning to ambush the monster. When Hai confronts the boss, the creature decides to use Hai as an experimental subject. The scene shifts to 12 years ago. People became aware of Hai and instructed him not to disclose anything to his parents, telling him to remain silent about what the man had said unless directly asked. After Hai's parents died in an accident, he was sent to a children's home, where all his belongings were stolen. Since then, Hai has harbored a deep grudge against anyone who tries to take what is rightfully his. The scene then returns to the present, where the boss of the C-rank dungeon is contemplating where to conduct an experiment and allows Hai to choose the starting point. Hai responds by telling the boss to stop, then strikes him with his slipper in a single, powerful blow. The 3 hunters, who are observing, are shocked by this display of strength. Hai notes that he has completed his task and mentions that his next destination is the village in the woodlands. The 3 hunters refer to Hai as the advanced player. The scene shifts to the Aries Guild, where the head of management, Wu, learns about the situation. Bayan informs him that Hugh requested to know this information privately. Wu admits that he does not have all the details. He then reviews Hai's profile, discussing his abilities and accomplishments. It was noted that Pado was a new guild from China, established 2 years ago, and had gained control over half of the dungeons. The guild leader had only been out of the tower for 4 years, and all the high-ranking members were renowned for their monstrous abilities. The leader's identity remained concealed from the world. Wu reassured Bayan not to worry about Hai, stating that, as they were preoccupied with Pado Guild, they didn't have time for someone like Hai. Wu was examining Hai's profile on his smartphone and marveled at the details. Meanwhile, Hai took a photo of Kim, planning to use it for gaming. Kim thought that providing the photo to Hai would keep him in contact, but Hai had been fixated on the phone for 3 hours straight. Kim explained that the village in the woodlands was managed by his guild, but currently there were no monsters. When Hai asked why, Kim elaborated that, unlike the tutorial tower where monsters regenerate within a day, this dungeon had a different cycle. Normal monsters reappeared constantly, but if the boss was defeated, it would take a month for the monsters to regenerate. Hai was shocked by this information. Kim informed Hai that the boss had been defeated 4 weeks ago, so Hai would only need to wait 2 to 3 days for monsters to reappear. Hai then inquired about the swamp in view. Kim admitted he wasn't sure, but suggested that Hai might find some information if he looked around. Kim then asked when Hai planned to register for a grade at the Hunters Association. Hai asked what that entailed. Kim explained that it would be beneficial for Hai, as he would gain access to association-sponsored facilities and financial support. Surprised, Hai asked how much he could earn from this. Kim explained that to receive such benefits, Hai would need to demonstrate significant results within 2 or 3 months. For a B-grade hunter, the earnings would be around 1.3 million won, with the potential to increase, as Kim himself was earning 7 million won a month. Hai was eager to register immediately, but Kim informed him that the registration was closed and advised him to try the next day. The next day, they both arrived at the association's Ability Measuring Center. A man at the desk asked for Hai's name for registration. When he heard Hugh's, he inquired if Hugh had escaped after 12 years. The man remarked that even visitors had come to inquire about Hai. He then explained that he would check Hai's data and asked him to hold the Eye of Truth box, which would display his status and determine his hunter grade. As the status was revealed, the man initially expected a B grade or B+. However, he was stunned to see that all of Hai's abilities were rated A, which was considered impossible. News of this spread quickly, and many people commented online, expressing their jealousy towards Hai. Later, Hai and Kim traveled by car. Hai remarked that it didn't take long for people to find out what had happened. Kim warned Hai to be cautious of the Aries Guild, as they were very powerful and could cause trouble for him. Kim noticed that Hai wasn't paying much attention, as he was engrossed in watching a video. Hai showed Kim the video, which featured a character on the game's loading screen making ridiculous poses. Hai was amused and made fun of the hunter's appearance. Kim then revealed that the character in the video was actually him. Hai was momentarily taken aback and questioned why Kim seemed to have so much free time despite Han and Lee being so busy. Kim explained that although he was a guild leader and busy himself, he made time to help Hai. The scene shifts to Bian, who is astonished to learn of Hai's A-grade status. He realizes why the branch manager is eager to take care of him. Wu arrives and mentions that he has contacted Sin. Bian inquires if Sin is the one about to reach S rank in China. Wu confirms that Sin would be the perfect person to handle Hai. Hai and Kim arrive at the village in the woodlands, and Hai wonders why no one is stopping them from entering. Kim explains that the village is owned by him. They reach the dungeon in the middle of the night, a time when the boss is about to regenerate. As they proceed inside, they are unaware that a man is following them, hiding and observing. Hai inquired about the boy who was with them. Kim explained that he was Bak, who was responsible for gathering the materials dropped by the boss. These materials, which were sold for real money, were currently worth between 20 to 35 million won. Kim noted that he understood Hai wouldn't get all of that amount. Bak then asked if Hai had found the film. Hai told him not to worry about it and asked what benefits he would receive. Hai was shocked to learn about streaming and the potential to earn money from it. He instructed Bak to split the earnings 80-20. Kim then handed Hai a note, mentioning that the area would become a maze when he entered the village in the woodlands. Hai didn't understand and discarded the note. They arrived in front of a tree, and Hai instructed Bak to make sure he filmed what was about to happen. Bak was unsure of Hai's plan. Hai then punched the tree with such force that it caused a massive blast, and the boss of the dungeon appeared. Bak's hands trembled as he marveled at Hai's power. Hai cleared a path to the boss with a single hit. Bak continued recording as Hai leapt and struck the boss with his slipper, causing it to fall and be defeated. The scene shifts to Wu, who asks Sin if he had a good look at Hai. Sin confirms that he did and remarks that Hai lived up to the rumors, which was impressive. However, Sin notes that it was relatively easy to figure out how to defeat him. Wu informs Sin that Hai is heading to the swamp in View Dungeon. Sin decides to go there and prepare for Hai's arrival. When Hai arrives at the dungeon, he senses something amiss. He receives a text from Lee reminding him not to forget her warnings about the Aries Guild. Hai wonders why everyone is so concerned about the Aries Guild and reflects that it doesn't make much difference to him. Hai recalls his conversation with Lee, where she asked what he planned to do and whether he intended to confront the Aries Guild. She noted that, based on his abilities as described by Kim, she needn't worry too much and had also seen the video. She advised him to avoid crossing paths with Aries members and to exit the dungeon as soon as possible. Lee then briefed him about the dungeon itself. As Hai dismisses these thoughts, he encounters a man who becomes enraged at his presence. Hai remarks that they are quite boring. They were rude to him initially, but once beaten, they only scream their guild's name in fear. Angered, the man charges at Hai but is quickly defeated. Hai enters the dungeon and faces the boss, a mega alligator. He remembers Lee's warning that the mega alligator could be sold for a substantial amount of money. Hai strikes the alligator with such force that it begins to flee. He grabs its tail, swings it around, and throws it into a rock. Despite this, the alligator is not defeated and charges at Hai again. Sin watches the confrontation from a distance. As Hai prepares to finish the battle, he realizes his legs are suddenly bound by chains. Hai barely managed to dodge the attack and caused the alligator to fall into the water. He wondered about the mysterious chain that had bound him. Sin appeared and explained that it was a magic chain, specifically designed to be effective against him. Sin asked who had sent him and remarked that he was surprised to see Hai revolving the alligator and defeating the twin-headed ogre boss with a single hit. However, Sin pointed out that Hai wouldn't be able to move easily while bound by the chain. Hai attempted to break free, but the chain held firm. Sin explained that it was a magic chain and that breaking it would require magic. To do that, Hai would need to be more powerful than an A-grade hunter. Since Hai had left the tower recently, he lacked the necessary magic and was thus in trouble. Sin told Hai to find a way to escape the chains. He then attacked Hai with a knife and used a skill against him. As the smoke cleared, Hai remained calm and asked if anything had happened. Sin was stunned by this and prepared to attack again. Hai responded by punching Sin, sending him crashing into a nearby tree. Hai stood up and approached Sin, who was trembling. Hai commented that to completely immobilize him, the chains would need to bind his entire body. He demonstrated that he could still move and that the chain had become loose, losing its effectiveness. Hai then picked up the tree and hurled it at the mega alligator. By that means, Hai defeated both Sin and the boss. His status window was upgraded as well. News of Sin's death quickly reached Wu, who was stunned by the report. The girl who delivered the news mentioned that the tree Sin was trapped in had already been swallowed by the swamp, so they couldn't confirm his death. Wu expressed his concern that even a hunter with 2 S-grade stats had been entirely consumed by the monsters. He worried about who could be stronger than Sin. Meanwhile, Hai was lounging on the couch when a system notification appeared, indicating that he had met the minimum requirements. He had 2 hours and 34 minutes left and had received an invitation from the system. Curious about the details, Hai wondered if this invitation would provide more information about the tower. He discovered that the invitation would be valid from midnight. Just then, Kim arrived and asked if Hai had finished dinner. Hai requested Kim to stay for a while. He used his new skill to check Kim's stats, but the numbers remained hidden, causing Hai frustration. As midnight approached, Hai was transferred to a different area. There, he encountered a lady who introduced herself as his assistant, named Av. Av explained that as long as Hai was alive, they would meet regularly. Hai agreed, eager to get answers to his questions and to understand why he had been trapped in the tower for 12 years. He asked her for an explanation. Av inquired what kind of explanation he was looking for. Frustrated, Hai demanded to know why she had called him if she wasn't going to provide answers. Av clarified that she would only answer his questions directly. Hai asked who had imprisoned him in the tutorial tower. Av replied that she could not reveal that information because Hai's status scan level was too low. Hai wondered if his status needed to be higher to obtain such information, and whether he would uncover the identity of his imprisoner once his skills improved. Av remained silent, unable to answer due to his low status level. Hai asked numerous questions, but Av's response was always the same because his level was too low. She could not provide answers. Frustrated, Hai questioned why she had brought him there if she was unwilling to answer his questions. Av reiterated that his low status scan level prevented her from providing detailed answers. She mentioned that the Guardians were those who defended the realm and hinted that there would be more information revealed in due time. Av made it clear that she wouldn't answer any of Hai's important questions at his current status scan level. She explained that he was a temporary Guardian for now and that detailed answers would be provided once he officially took on the duties of a Guardian. Hai asked how he could become an official Guardian. Av told him that in 5 days, a rift would appear near his residence. Deep within that rift, he would find a key that would help him increase his status scan skill. Finding this key would grant him official Guardian status. Determined, Hai resolved to do whatever it took to accomplish this. The next day, Hai was having a meal with his 3 friends and brought up the topic of the rift. Kim asked if there was a particular reason for his sudden interest, and hinted at possible impending danger. The scene shifts to Hyuk, who was telling Wu that it wasn't his fault. Hai was simply too strong. He advises Wu to somehow recruit Hai and promises substantial funds in return. He also instructs Wu to find individuals stronger than Hai and warns him to pay attention to the Pado Guild, as their members seem to have been eliminated by masked task forces. Hyuk is deeply concerned that nothing is unfolding as he had planned. The scene then shifts to Hai, where Han presents him with a ring worth 2 billion won, which was discovered in the labyrinth. Hai notes the distinction between a dungeon and a labyrinth, explaining that artifacts are typically found in labyrinths, whereas dungeons yield special resources or magical materials dropped from monsters. Kim elaborates that dungeons are where they gather rare resources or farm magical strings and materials, while treasures found in labyrinths are exceptionally powerful. Han adds that the ring is enchanted, meaning it has higher stats compared to ordinary rings. Hai examines the ring with his skill and concludes that it appears to be of little use. Determined to understand more, he decides to visit the labyrinth himself. Hai hands the ring back to Han, asking if it's truly worth 2 billion won. Following this, Hai decides to order everything on the menu, which shocks the other 3. Han, however, encourages him to eat as much as he wants. Hai then inquires about the rift. The group explains that a rift is a tear in the ground from which numerous monsters continuously emerge. Lee adds that in China, such rifts are referred to as Hell's Gates. Hai dismisses it as no big deal and asks if they have considered what might happen if a rift appeared in their country. The group ponders the question, with Kim suggesting that they could handle C-rank rifts or lower. Lee mentions that while some Korean guilds are prepared to fight, Ares would respond only half-heartedly. Hai advises them to rest for 4 days, sensing that something significant is about to happen. The scene shifts to an airport a few days later. where people begin to feel the ground shaking and wonder if it's an earthquake. Suddenly, a powerful blast disrupts the crowd, and ominous sounds emanate from within the ground. The scene shifts to a dark, ominous area where a man discusses the awakening of something powerful. The head figure, with a tone of challenge, remarks on how capable Hai might prove to be. The scene transitions back to the city, where a rift has opened, unleashing a torrent of monsters that are wreaking havoc. The broadcaster provides updates, warning that the situation is worsening and advising people to evacuate the area. Hunters engage in battle with the monsters but appear increasingly fearful. As a monster attacks one of the hunters, his superior intervenes to protect him, realizing that backup is urgently needed. Despite their efforts, the monsters keep pouring in. The superior spots a particularly massive and strange skeletal monster, and the entire home grows anxious. They face of this overwhelming threat. Amid the chaos, a boy is struck by the skeletal monster and thrown into a car, while the monster closes in on him. With a calm determination, Hai arrives and decisively destroys the skeletal monster's head. Witnesses are left in awe, wondering if Hai could be the advanced player they had heard about. Hai realizes he has a limited amount of time to find the key, so he must hurry. The other hunters are staring at him in confusion. Hai asks them why they are hesitating when monsters are closing in. The group resumes the battle, and Hai remarks on how revolting the situation is, stating that others will arrive soon and that he should assist them first. Hai takes action by using a giant skeleton as a weapon, hurling it at the monsters to kill them. The man leading the group is relieved to see Hai's involvement, believing they can hold off the monsters until reinforcements arrive. He advises the others to stay close to Hai, but Hai insists they continue fighting while he moves on. The man directs everyone to hold their ground and keep battling. Exhausted and overwhelmed, the group struggles against the relentless monsters. When a monster attacks the man, Kim arrives just in time to save him, having joined the battle with his guild. A lightning strike then targets a monster, signaling Lee's arrival with her guild. Finally, Han shows up with his guild, much to the man's relief. The group is grateful for the timely assistance. Lee wonders where Hai has gone, and the man explains that Hai has ventured to the center of the rift. With the reinforcements now present, the battle against the monsters resumes. They were all dominating the battle, pushing back the monsters with impressive skill. Hai assessed the situation and determined that things were now under control. He needed to reach the depths of the rift, but he was surprised to find an unexpected way up. Scanning his surroundings, he noticed a car. Hai ripped the doors off the car and, using them as shields, charged forward to clear a path from the monsters and make a descent into the depths. Feeling he was getting closer, Hai leaped and landed amidst the corpses of the monsters. As he surveyed his surroundings, he saw a climber crimson demon approaching him. Sensing that the demon was eager for a fight, Hai prepared to engage. He rushed in to attack, but the crimson demon deftly dodged both of Hai's initial strikes and countered, forcing Hai to fall back. Undeterred, the crimson demon launched a fierce counterattack, closing in on Hai once more. Hai dodges the attack and kicks the monster, causing it to fall, but the Ragnarok demon quickly gets back up and speaks to someone. Hai struggles to understand what was said and charges in for another attack, but the monster catches his hand. Hai notices some crystals glowing in Ragnarok's hand. The demon uses the crystals to strike at Hai, sending him sprawling. Hai realizes that this monster is stronger and more formidable than he anticipated. Different from the monsters he faced in the tower, he considers using a long-abandoned skill, reflecting on his past training. He recalls that in the tower, martial artists would often achieve enlightenment through intense spiritual training to overcome their trials. Determined, Hai decides to try this skill once more, hoping it might be his last chance. He had initially tried to emulate others, but eventually forged his own path. Although his early attempts had little effect on the monsters, persistent effort eventually led him to defeat them. With these memories in mind, Hai shakes off the nostalgia and focuses on the present. He prepares himself and rushes to deliver a powerful punch to the Ragnarok demon. Hai is pleased that no one witnessed his special move and is satisfied with defeating the monster. He finally obtains the key and observes a drone descending from Ares, who are monitoring the situation from their office. Hugh, upon hearing the news, remarks that Hai is classified as an A-grade hunter. Alice confirms this, noting that it was also stated in Hai's documents. Hugh, frustrated, slams his hand on the table, expressing disbelief at Hai's A-grade status, especially since he hadn't used any magic but was still incredibly powerful. He asks Bion if the data collection is complete, and Bion confirms it is. Hugh insists on finishing the analysis as soon as possible. The next day, at the Hunters Association, a ceremony is underway with Hai, his friends, and other attendees present. Back is streaming the event, and the viewership is high. Everyone is receiving rewards from the association. The man in charge asks Hai if he wants new clothes, but Hai declines, causing the man to become annoyed with his perceived rudeness. Hai, eager to leave, rushes out, further enraging the man. The scene shifts to the Pero Guild's Emperor's Castle, where a girl is enjoying a steam bath while watching footage of Hai. She is intrigued by his abilities and asks for his name. A lady informs her about Hai and suggests investigating his history in detail. A man arrives with an update they have taken control of all the main dungeons in the southern region, but conflicts with local guilds occurred during the process. He regrets to inform them that one of their executives has been kidnapped by Ares. The lady expresses disdain for the situation, noting the executive's unfortunate capture and commenting on how pathetic it is. She insists that if they cannot find their way back on their own, they do not deserve their positions. She stresses the need for immediate action, deeming it shameful that they are struggling to capitalize on dungeons within their own territory. She vows to uphold her commitment. The scene shifts back to Hai and his friends. Lee asks if Hai is aware of how famous he has become. Kim chimes in, noting that they shouldn't laugh about it. Hai is surprised to learn that tabloids have been reporting on him continuously for the past 12 hours. Lee comments that Hai should not have left the ceremony so abruptly after receiving his reward, as all the journalists witnessed his departure. Kim adds that Hai left in a tracksuit and slippers, which only drew more attention. Hai tells his friends that he needs to leave for a while as he has a date. They are shocked, realizing that Hai has other social connections. The friends discuss how it was unwise for Hai to make Ares his enemy, especially since the media is now focusing on him. They speculate about Hai's next move. Han reassures them, saying not to worry, as Hai is unlikely to get into serious trouble. Hai arrives at his assistant, Vi, and asks if his scan status has improved. She confirms that his rank has advanced from the lowest to a low rank. Hai is frustrated and demands to know what has actually improved. Vi explains that while his ability to access information remains similar, he has made significant progress as an official guardian. She will now be able to provide details about tasks, and Hai will be responsible for stopping all climbers attempting to ascend the tower. Hai is unfamiliar with this new responsibility. Vi clarifies that she is referring to the tower consisting of 12 layers, with Earth being the 9th layer. Hai is taken aback by this revelation. Hai reflects on how he only wants to discover who imprisoned him in the tower for 12 years and wonders if that's too much to ask. The situation seems increasingly complicated. Vi reveals that if he doesn't stop the climbers, the 9th layer of the tower will be destroyed, leading to widespread devastation and ultimately ending his life. Hai realizes he must handle this task discreetly. Frustrated by Vi's seemingly foolish demeanor, Hai becomes annoyed. Vi pleads with him not to be angry, emphasizing that she is genuinely trying to help. She explains that he will receive rewards that will increase his value in proportion to his contributions, based on the number of climbers he defeats. Hai asks what level of his scan skill is required to find out who imprisoned him in the tower. Vi responds that it needs to be at a high level. He inquires if stopping climbers will increase his skill level and how many he needs to take down. Vi admits she cannot provide an exact number, but reveals that climbers have ranks. Defeating 5 climbers should be sufficient to reach the high access level needed. Hai asks about the rank of the red goblins with horns. Vi guesses they are likely low-rank climbers. After this, Hai returns home and, sitting alone, reflects on the complexity of the tower's stats. He decides not to dwell on it any longer, as it only seems to complicate matters further. His main goal is straightforward: to find the person who imprisoned him in the tower, which means he needs to eliminate climbers. Hai receives a call from Lee. Upon answering, she tells him he's in trouble and advises him to turn on the news. Hai does so and is shocked to see reports that he has killed a member of the Ares Guild. The news segment features a reporter questioning a man who is providing statements about the incident. The scene shifts to Han's home, where Hai and his 3 friends are sitting together, surrounded by the incessant ringing of phones. Lee remarks on Hai's newfound fame, noting that his escape from the tower after 12 years and recent rift clearing have attracted attention from many countries. However, now he is being accused of murder. Hai asks Lee to remain calm and not to worry too much. Her frustration grows as she feels Hai is acting as though he's still inside the tower. Hai, feeling as though he's being scolded by a wife he doesn't have, questions whether Lee has feelings for him. Lee, visibly annoyed but trying to stay composed, denies it. Hai starts to worry about his own safety. Kim shows Hai the call history of a reporter and trending articles, highlighting how Hai is currently in the spotlight. Hai feels a sense of accomplishment, noting that this is his first time being so prominently featured. However, as Kim presents more articles, Hai realizes that many of them are negative. Han suggests turning off the phones to avoid further stress. Hai asks when the press conference will start. Han replies that it will begin in 30 minutes and reveals that reporters have been invited to the event. Lee is surprised by this news. They discuss whether he has a plan for the conference and if he intends to make a dramatic declaration, such as declaring war against the Ares Guild. Hai, feeling disappointed, asks his friends if they really think of him in such a way. The scene then shifts to the Ares Guild, where Hyuk is informed that everything is proceeding smoothly. Wu asks how the others have responded to the situation. The man reports that Hai is scheduled to hold a press conference around 2 p.m. According to experts, it will be challenging for Hai to escape this predicament. Hyuk believes that whoever strikes first will gain the upper hand and feels it is too late to make amends. He intends to stay one step ahead of Hai, seeing Hai's rising popularity as a potential downfall. Hyuk asks if Hai's press conference will be broadcast live. The man confirms this and reveals that he has already sent people to cover the event. Hyuk expresses his appreciation. At Hai's press conference, journalists question him about the allegations that he attacked members of the Ares Guild and what he thinks of the guild. Hai responds that he is unsure how the conference will unfold but will speak his mind. He candidly expresses his negative feelings about the Ares Guild, which shocks everyone present. When asked if he truly killed a member of the Ares Guild, Hai confirms this and expresses his gratitude to those listening, suggesting they should pay attention to what he has to say. Hai displays a phone, explaining that he doesn't understand why Ares is treating him this way. He clarifies that he had no intention of making any deals with Ares and did not expect their response to be so extreme. Hai then plays a recording of a conversation with Sin, showing a moment when Sin had him chained up. The reporters are stunned to hear the threatening words of an assassin sent by Ares. In the recording, Sin ominously predicts Hai's imminent death. Hai stops the playback. A reporter asks where the recording came from. Hai reveals that it was recorded in the swamp where Sin was killed. He explains that he went there to defeat the boss, and the incident has been distorted by the media. Another reporter questions if Hai is being manipulated or seduced by the Ares company. Hai challenges the reporters to prove the authenticity of the recording, noting that fake recordings are easily created. He acknowledges that such questions were expected, and believes that the date and time of the recording will confirm its validity. However, if they persist, he will reveal that the phone belonged to Sin, who had come to kill him. Hai added that since the phone was locked, he didn't know what was inside. However, they would all find out if he handed it over to the police or the security company. He brought it to show that the assassin had been sent by Ares, so Hai had to fight back to save himself. In the midst of this, the alligator appeared, and Sin was killed. This was because Sin had been willing to kill Hai, but was ultimately killed by the alligator. Hai noted that he was aware of what the Ares organization was, but he hadn't expected them to cause such drama. As he ended the conference and stepped outside, news spread, leading people to wonder if Hai was actually in the right and if the Ares Guild was wrong. Beyond became enraged upon hearing the audio recording. Wu told the media that they wouldn't pass up the chance to criticize Ares. Bayon, fuming, decided he wouldn't leave Hai alone. Hai was having dinner with his friends when Kim asked about the recording. Han and Lee were also surprised. Hai revealed that he had made the recording and that the phone was a decoy. When asked if his statements were also false, Hai denied it, explaining that while the phone wasn't Sin's, the recording was real. They were all quite confused, and then Hai revealed that he had taken a phone from Kim's house. Lee mentioned that he might get caught if the phone ended up with the police. Hai reassured him that he wouldn't get caught and that there wasn't much risk. He expected that the Ares company would come to meet him before he submitted the phone to the police or security company. Hai then told them to back off. Lee remarked that it seemed like Hai was worrying for no reason. Hai asked them to just calm down and enjoy the meal. He wondered about the Ares Guild. They might have won many battles, but they wouldn't win against him. Later, as Hai and Kim were leaving, Hai instructed Kim not to follow him and said he would return home directly. As Hai walked through the streets, he noticed some people approaching sooner than he had anticipated. One man informed him that someone was looking for him. Hai made a jest about their attire and remarked that the Ares Guild wanted to meet him. What if he decided not to go? The man replied that they would take him by force. Hai agreed to fight them, and they prepared to attack. Hai grabbed a vegetable from the ground and readied himself. As they charged at him with their equipment, Hai rushed to confront them. Hai defeated all of his attackers except one, who was begging for mercy. Hai demanded to be taken to where the others were waiting. They arrived at an underground bunker where people were discussing Hai. Hai entered with the remaining man and asked if this was the right place. Inside the building, people heard noises from outside and speculated whether Hai had arrived. They realized the sounds were coming from the elevator and warned their men to be cautious. Hai made his entrance by attacking one of the men and remarked that those people must have spent a lot of money to build such a place. They asked who he was, and Hai replied that he was a Grim Reaper, there to send them to the afterlife. The scene shifted to a room where a girl was tied to a chair. Hyuk was interrogating her, explaining that the Pato Guild had abandoned her. He threatened that she would die if she didn't reveal their weaknesses and other information. If she complied, she would be released. When she remained silent, Hugh ordered his men to take her inside and make her wish she were dead. A man suggested that they might end up killing her. Hugh dismissed this, saying no one cared. Just then, Hai burst in by breaking down the door and asked if they were looking for him. He noticed the girl tied to the chair and commented that it was rude to invite him while they were preoccupied with others. Hugh asked how Hai had managed to get in and where Team 1 was. Hai responded that Team 1 was taking a nap in a back alley and that he had no choice but to deal with them himself. A man charged at Hai, but Hai swiftly kicked him, sending him crashing to the ground. Hai remarked that he had come because they had invited him and asked if they wanted to fight or discuss matters. Hugh assessed that Hai was above A grade, and though the people present were also A+, none could touch Hai. After hearing about Hai's rift incident, Hugh had learned that Hai was actually S rank. Hai addressed Hugh, asking whether they wanted to be beaten or to talk. Though angered, Hugh maintained his composure and agreed to talk. He realized he needed to stay calm to better understand Hai's abilities. Hai proposed discussing compensation for the damage caused by Ares, including sending someone to kill him and creating chaos in the media by spreading fake news about him. He requested 10 billion won and access to some beginner-level dungeons as compensation. A man slammed his fist on the table in frustration. Hai insisted that his demands were reasonable. Hugh considered the financial aspect manageable, but the request for dungeon access was problematic. Granting this would deprive Ares of exclusive access to new hunters. Hai then added an additional demand of 500 million won. Hugh remarked that Hai was quite different from what he had expected. He proposed that Hai join them and promised that Hai would receive whatever he wanted. Hugh argued that working together would be more beneficial than being enemies. Hai, however, remained firm on his demands for compensation and added that the girl should be released as well. He threatened the man, who noted Hai's unwavering confidence. Hai stood up, asking whether they had agreed to the compensation or if they wanted to continue the fight. Later, Hai returned to Kim's home with the girl. Kim, shocked, asked about her presence. Hai explained everything to Kim. He had secured the rights to 4 beginner dungeons, 11 billion won, and the girl as compensation. Kim asked how Hugh had agreed to all of this. Hai explained that Hugh knew what the consequences would be if he refused. Kim inquired why Hai had brought the girl with him. Hai replied that he needed her as a hostage and had some private matters to investigate, so Kim didn't need to worry about it. Kim planned to check on the dungeons, noting that some bosses were regenerating. Hai noticed a tattoo on the girl's hand, which reminded him of the mask he had created while he was obsessed with the mantra. He used the status scan and discovered that the girl was named Rin but found nothing particularly unusual. Hai received news that a new climber had started ascending to the 9th floor and was summoned by AV. Upon arriving, AV informed him that a man was approaching. Hai asked her what she needed to know about him and when he would arrive. As AV began to show him the notification, she was struck by the man and cried, blaming Hai for the incident because his status scan had been inadequate. Hai asked AV what the benefit of her information was if she couldn't provide details about it. AV explained that she had invited him to inform him that the climber currently ascending was stronger than previous ones, and Hai needed to be prepared. She emphasized that he had to learn magic as quickly as possible, otherwise he would be in serious trouble. Hai inquired if the climber's rank was high. AV clarified that if a high-ranking climber had arrived, dealing with him using only magic would be difficult. Such an event would be apocalyptic. Without magic, Hai wouldn't even be able to face the mid-rank climber whose arrival was imminent. Hai asked if she knew where the climber would appear and whether there would be a rift like last time. AV wasn't sure about the rift, but climbers were determined by their specific abilities and backgrounds. Hai realized that this was a mid-rank climber and that she hadn't given him direct information. He then asked why she kept provoking him and questioned if her parents had taught her proper manners. AV responded that her parents had died in a car accident when she was young. She apologized for her behavior. Hai reassured her that it was fine and that it didn't bother him anymore. AV felt that Hai wasn't as bad as she had initially thought. At the Ares Guild, Hai and Lee were setting up a magic circle. Hai instructed Lee not to disclose that it was a scam, while Lee assured him that he would be able to feel the magic, though he currently couldn't. Lee warned Hai not to break the circle, as it had cost 5 billion won. Hai remarked that it seemed he didn't have the capacity to learn magic. Lee noted that she hadn't heard of any hunter struggling so hard to learn magic. Just then, Kim arrived, commenting on how worn out they looked and asking if Hai still couldn't use magic after 4 days.